So we're here promoting our new game, Hackmaster Basic, at Gen Con. That's what sales are great, brisk. I think we're one of the lucky companies that has a lot of new product out, and so for us that's great. Hackmaster sales in particular are doing well. It's it's flying off the shelf. People want to check out the new game. And interestingly enough, we're getting a lot of fans that had never played the prior version of Hackmaster. They're all heck curious, so they're coming to buy the new game. As far as how it's different from the other game, it's the same in that it's also a fantasy game and has a similar feel when you sit down and play. So I guess I'll start with what's the same about it. You have similar basic character classes: fighter, mage, cleric, thief. And they also have similar stats, and they have quirks and flaws. Honor is still in the game and works similarly. We have a little bit tighter rules around it as far as gaining and losing honor, and at the same time they give a lot more leeway to the game master. As far as what's different, spell casting works. The mechanics are a little bit different. Spell casting works a little bit differently. You have a blend of a Vancian system with slots and spell points for magic users. Well, we have a couple of different methods of making characters in the advanced game. There's a quick start rules where literally in 5 minutes you'll have a character that's 90% as good as anybody you're going to agonize over for 2 hours, and you could start playing the game immediately. Then there's the standard basic character creation, and that'll take a little bit longer. Should be less than a half an hour. There's a third level of character creation that has all the extra background details that you don't actually need to run through the dungeon, but you might want for later, like how many siblings do you have, and whether your parents were loving or whether they treated you poorly, and all that sort of stuff. Are you an orphan or not? So, and that's all in an appendix. So it's kind of got 3 levels, and you can go 5 minutes, half an hour, 2 days, whatever you want to do. So I mentioned the spells briefly. Probably the biggest divergence is the basic combat mechanic of the game is different. In prior versions of Hackmaster and in its other role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, you basically, if I'm the game master, you've got a warrior standing there wearing armor. I roll a hit. You tell me what your armor rating is or armor class, and if I get above a certain static number, you're hit and I roll damage. So you're doing a whole lot of sitting there praying, just waiting for me to tell you what happens. It's totally at the mercy of my dice. You can't have any control over it. In this game, it works a little different. I would roll my 20-sider to hit you, and I'd add all my attack bonuses. You would roll your 20-sider to defend and add all your defense bonuses. So if you exceed my number, I don't hit you. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in the game are opposed. Saving throws have become opposed. Like, you get poisoned by a spider, that's an opposing check. That adds an additional element of randomness, gives a little bit more spread for bonuses and growth for players, for characters to become more powerful, but yet not unbalance things. So just a little bit more granularity is allowed from that, and a lot more excitement. So I don't know about you, but when I'm playing another version of a role-playing game, if I roll to hit and I roll a 6 and I know I need a 12 to hit, I'm like, oh, I got a 6, I'm done. In this game, you roll a 6, you're not happy about it, but you're still like, okay, what's the game master going to roll? You might get a 1. My odds just decreased a lot, but I still got a shot. There's still a glimmer of hope. Another thing that's a little different about it is we're using the count-up system for maces and 8s for initiative and movement. So when you're sitting around the table playing, everybody's got something to do at all times because you're counting up by seconds. So instead of I take my turn, now I go get a bag of chips and a pop because I got to wait till all of you other mooks take your turn, and I know it takes you forever to freaking think about what you want to do. Even though you've had 20 minutes for your turn, you still haven't decided what you wanted to do. That is totally gone. So let's say, so the count-up system works in seconds. So you roll initiative, you start moving, so I count up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now it's your turn. You get to go. Well, Jolly's waiting to go on 6, right? But you go on 5, Jolly goes on 6. You might be able to take an action on 7 if he kills the guy you were fighting. So you can't get up and leave the table, and everyone has to pay attention to what's going on. It keeps players completely engaged throughout the entire combat. So if you're playing a combat for 20 or 30 minutes, it isn't really, I have a minute and a half of glory intermixed between minutes and minutes of waiting. It's I gotta pay attention to what's going on, because at any point one of my guys could drop, one of their guys could drop, things could change the battle is just really dynamic because of that.
Play test.
He developed the dwarf.
Yeah, I developed the dwarf.
Helped us flesh out the honor rules.
Yeah, and so I worked on the dice rolling chapter.
He did a bunch. He worked on a bunch of stuff.
It's hard to.
This is the way we design games. It's really a group design mechanic, which I think makes things much stronger for us. It isn't like one of us goes off, makes a game, and says, "Hey, I got a new game. Why don't all come play it?" We develop from the ground up together. So, you know, me and Jolly and Steve and Brian were all working on this game together over a period of months and months, probably 2 years.
Yeah, especially the play test, like we'll be playing and we'd stop for 2 hours to discuss one role. Right. And pin it down, then keep going.
I'm not going to divulge when the first books are coming out because frankly I don't know because we're not done with them. But I'll tell you the first book that will come out is called Hacklopedia of Beasts, and it's going to be a book of monsters. That'll be the first advanced book. It's the design goal we had with basic and advanced was the mechanics are all the same, the games are the same. We've already designed the advanced game to make basic. What we didn't want to do is make a basic game and then make an advanced game. So if you bought basic, now you have a new game when you buy advanced. They're the same game. Basic takes you up to 5th level and has a limited selection of spells and a limited selection of skills and talents and things so that it's easier for people to get their mind around the game. Limited selection of weapons. And by limited, this is Hackmaster, so limited for Hackmaster is like more extensive than most other games. You know, the weapon list is like 30 or 40 strong, not 5, right? You know, and there's 75 monsters, not 10, right? So, so there's that, but when Advanced comes out, you can take your 5th level character you've played through Basic and you can bring them in, play Advanced. The only thing is, Advanced is going to add a whole bunch of new races. Basic only has human, dwarf, elf, and halfling. In Advanced, you're going to have a whole slew of other races and a whole slew of new classes that you can choose. So instead of the 4 basic classes and 4 basic races, you're going to have whatever, 12 of each. And you'll have a whole bunch of new talents and skills and other things you can pick, so there's a lot more variety to choose from. So you'll have a character you can use, but he might be more standard, more generic. So your fighter is going to be a standard fighter. If you want a fighter with a longsword, the guy you use in Basic isn't going to be any different than the one you roll up in Advanced. It'll be the same dude, so you can just keep on rolling with that guy. Yes, the exploding dice from Hackmaster 4th edition is still the same. And yes, a longsword does 2d8. The weapons all vary, so a dagger does 2 dice 4, a longsword does 2d8, a mace does a d8 and a d6. Now each race has a standard base hit point kicker that gets added, and it goes pretty much by size. So, but it varies. Like dwarves are size small, but they get the size medium hit point kicker. So medium gets 10, small gets 5, and elves are medium, but they only get small because they're frail. So. And then, you know, large gets 15, and it goes up. So some monsters start with this huge base. So adding to that, you add your whole constitution. So if your if you have an 18 constitution, you don't add +4 to your points, or whatever, you add +18. So if you're human with 18 con, you'd have 10 for being human, 18 for your constitution, that's 28, and then you roll your hit die. If you're a fighter, it's a d10. So you could have almost 40 hit points. And in fact, some dwarves do it.
At first level, have 40 hit points.
But some elf thieves might only have 14. You could be killed by 1 sword blow at first level. It's 1999, almost 200 pages. Got everything you need to play. If you got a really good resolution, you can read the back. And you can go to KenzerCo.com and find out all the information you want. And we're working on a new site for it right now, so hopefully they'll be done.